Hey there, it's Kat, and this is Brews and Reviews. I've just dropped the book. So you may have noticed there's a Christmas tree beside me. This Christmas tree will duck in and out of these videos, but here it is. It's my Christmas tree. It's red and gold. Anyway, now we're on to the topic of the video, and it is my November wrap-up. So I'm just going to talk to you guys about the 18 books that I read this month. I think it was 18. It's a lot. It's close to that number, regardless. So I am going to have to talk quickly, otherwise you'll be here forever, and nobody wants that. So I'm just going to get straight on into this and start talking about what I read. So throughout November I was taking part in Bookemon Catchathon, a Pokemon themed readathon created by Meg from Tome Infinity. If you guys want, I can go through a breakdown of the books that I read and the Bookemon that they caught. I can go through like a more in-depth rundown of that, but I'm not going to be doing that in this wrap-up, so if you want that, tell me down in the comments below. So yeah, the first book that I read was Smashing Saxons by Terry Deary. This is a non-fiction historical middle grade book about the Saxons, which, to be fair, is a historical period I know very, very little about. We didn't study it at school, so I don't really know very much about it. Now, if you don't know what horrible histories are, they are a series of books that try and make history funny and tell you about, like, the gruesome parts of history, but, like, still for kids. Yeah, this was alright. It was amusing, and Saxons are gross. That's what I learned. It was fine. I'm definitely not the target age range. I definitely read this for a challenge. It was to read a middle grade book. I don't really read middle grade books, and it's tiny, so that helped. So yeah, it was fine. If you've got young kids, horrible history is probably a good way to go for history. So the next book is the opposite of the tiny book that I just read, and it's Under the Dome by Stephen King. Yes, the biggest book I have read this month, probably one of the biggest books I've read all year. It is like nearly 900 pages, and please excuse the gross old man cover, because this is just the worst cover ever. So bad. Anyway, I was doing a buddy read of this with Lauren from She's Such a Lauren, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed doing that. To be honest, this is the only way that this book was ever going to get read, is as a buddy read, and I'm kind of surprised I did it, because I didn't think I was ever going to read a big book as a buddy read. It's not really a thing that I do, and yeah, I'm more open to that in the future now, because otherwise I would never have read it. So yeah, that aside, onto the book. I actually really enjoyed this book. Now, this is a very different sort of Stephen King book for me. I'm not going to spoil any twists or turns or anything that happens, but basically a dome comes down onto a town and nobody can get in or out, and the first 200 pages of this book are basically just things that happened to people when the dome came down, and then everything that happens after that is because all of the people in the town, save for like very few people, are all shit heaps. They are like the worst people ever, and there are some like really, really villainous assholes in this town. And yeah, so I really enjoyed that. It was fun. It was fun to see how the town just sort of descended into this weird madness, and it was great. It was really entertaining. And I didn't mind the twist. There's a twist that happens in this, and a lot of people hate the ending, and I didn't mind it. I thought it was fine. So, yeah, quite enjoyed this one. Next up, I read Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. This is a reread for me. This book's about a girl with anxiety who has a extremely popular webcomic, and she does all the art and the writing for it. And it's just cute, and I love it, and I've talked about it loads of times, so yeah, I love it. It's great. So the next book that I read was The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Sparks. So I have a kind of a weird connection with this book, even though I've never read it and I've never seen the film. Basically, it's my dad's nickname, so I've always gone, oh yeah, Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, yeah. So I wanted to read it, finally, and there were a couple of challenges that I wanted to tick off in Bookemon Catchathon, and it just worked out. So I was like, I'm going to read it. And I did. And it was weird. It was a weird book. Yeah. I don't really know what I thought of it, to be honest with you. Miss Brodie is weird. Oh wow, I've heard that sentence a lot. Anyway, yeah, so weird teacher, weird pupils. Honestly, I think I'm too dumb to understand this book. Like, it definitely has like a message, and the messages just go right over my head. Supposedly a coming of age sort of thing, but I don't know. I guess it examines the relationship and the influence that teachers can have on their children that they teach. But I don't know, it was odd, an odd one. I think I gave it 3 stars, but it was probably more of a 2-star book in hindsight because but the audiobook is narrated by Miriam Margolis and she's just fabulous, and I just kind of wanted to speak in a Scottish accent like for ages after that. I'm not going to subject you guys to my bad Scottish accent because my family would be ashamed of me, so yeah. So the next book that I read was by Chuck Palahniuk and it was Fight Club. Now, don't know if you saw a previous video where I said that I hated Fight Club, but I hated Fight Club. It's a shit book. Nobody should ever read it, and I don't even want to give it any more space on this channel. I gave it a 1 star because it was full of like shit, worthless people who were horrible, and I just didn't give a crap. Why are you doing these things? What is... I just... fuck. I don't care. It was rubbish. Do not... I'm really sorry if you enjoyed this book, and I'm guessing the film is much similar to the book, but not for me. No, not for me. Then I picked up Lock and Key, Welcome to Lovecraft. So this is the first book in the Lock and Key series, and I really enjoyed it. I was not expecting it to be as sort of sad as it is. It's creepy, but I don't think I was expecting it to be so gruesome. There is like a full-on murder that happens early on, and so everyone's sort of dealing with the outcome of that, and it's just sad and creepy. There are some creepy things that happen and some fucked up people in this, but I liked it. I'm very intrigued as to where it's gonna go. Yeah, I think the violence in it and like the sadness level just kept it from being a 5-star for me, so it was a 4-star, but I did really enjoy it and I would definitely want to continue with this one. Next up, I listened to Real Crime, which is like one of those Audible original mini-series things that they do. It's the first one I've listened to, and yeah, I thought it was interesting. It was sort of something I was doing while I was painting, and so I just sort of listened to it on the way. It's not a nice program. It has sort of short 30-minute episode sort of chapters, and each one of those deals with a different crime, like true crime, and you actually hear real recordings of killers and people who were in certain situations, and it's not particularly nice. It's very interesting, but I wouldn't say it's nice. I couldn't necessarily say that it's good either because I don't really think it goes into enough depth to cover what actually happened in all of the situations. You get a very glossed over point of view of those situations, and I think there is more to be said about each of those things, and probably could have benefited from a longer episode with maybe fewer episodes in it, but it was fine. It was interesting enough. So after that one I read Macbeth, and it was actually like the translated version of Macbeth. So I borrowed the graphic novel of like the English, nowadays English version of Macbeth from my brother because I needed it to fulfill a challenge, and I was like, I've read Macbeth before, this will take me like 2 seconds, especially in graphic novel form, I mean, come on. And it did take me about 2 seconds, but something I've learned is that reading Shakespeare that's been updated to our sort of vernacular, it's not as good. It's just not. It misses so much in the language. And I was like, wow, Macbeth maybe isn't as great if you get rid of the whole writing thing. Like, I didn't realise how much I actually valued its poetry in it. Yeah, I didn't realise how much I enjoyed it, so I didn't really enjoy the updated, translated version, but I do enjoy the normal one, I guess, so that's a weird thing that I discovered. So next up I'm going to talk about a small reread that I did. A lot of these you will see are me fulfilling challenges. So yeah, this one is Percy Jackson, The Demigod Files by Rick Riordan. This is a series of shorts, tiny little stories with a few little extra bits like interviews with the campers and that sort of thing, and yeah, I think it takes place somewhere around Sea of Monsters to Titan's Curse, somewhere around there, and it's interesting. It has a little bit about the Bronze Dragon in it, and yeah, it's fine. Just a very, very short, young read. That's all I've really got to say. Okay, so I also did a thing this month. As per my autumn goals list that I was still trying to tick off, I had set myself the challenge to read the Nevernight Chronicles. So having only read the first one, I decided to reread the first one so then I could continue it and just read them all and like enjoy it. So I did reread Nevernight, and I loved it just as much the second time as I did the first time, and I was like, yeah, this is a really good book and I really enjoyed this. And then I read God's Grave, and that's a really good book. Possibly one of my favourite books of the year. It's so good. Like, I don't want to gush too much about this. I might make a separate video gushing about the Nevernight Chronicles, but like, this one features gladiators and just fucking awesomeness that I just loved it so much, and my little by heart can't take it. It's just so good. I enjoyed it so much. I'm so trying not to be spoilery, guys, because then I read Dark Dawn, and oh my god, it's so good. I haven't managed to actually collect my thoughts yet on how I feel about this series as a whole, but I feel like it just sort of hit me in the right place in the right time. But I'm still really mad about something that happened in this book. There's like one particular thing that makes me just the maddest, and it has to do with this character here on the front of this book. I'm not saying what. If you've read Dark Dawn, you know what. But like, it crushed my little soul. Still so mad about that, but oh god, these books are so good. If you haven't read these yet and you don't mind like violence and like a lot of violence, then you should just pick them up right now. Drop whatever you're doing, pick this up. I wish someone had told me to do that and like said, no, really stop what you're doing and read these. So yeah, you should read these now. I also read a book called A Scone to Die For by H.Y. Hannah, and it was an interesting book. It was a cosy mystery set in Oxford in a tea room about a guy who got killed by a scone, or like he was found with a scone in his mouth. It was weird. It was quite funny because it did have some like weird like nosy nanas, and there was a cat involved, and it was cute. It's the first cozy mystery I've ever read actually, and I quite enjoyed it. It was fun. It kind of makes me want to cozy up and read a bit more, so I feel like it was a good thing to read around like this time of year. But it didn't like hit me or anything like that. I wasn't like, oh my god, I need to read the next one, or like, it was fine. Just a read, really. Just a read. And now I'm going to talk to you guys about the books that I read in the 24-hour readathon, the never-ending readathon. And I actually managed to read 4 books. 2 of them were mangas, but like, still, 2 books. So yeah, that's good by me. So the first one is Antony and Cleopatra by William Shakespeare. Now, this ticked off a bunch of challenges for me, and as you can see, I got it for £1 like a million years ago. It was actually less than that because I had 20% discount, so I'm fucking cheap. Anyway, this one I didn't like very much, to be honest with you. Like, Cleopatra's really whiny. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows like the tragedy of Antony and Cleopatra and how that ends, and god, she's so whiny. She spends the whole time being like a super dramatic bitch. I mean, I'm quite dramatic as like myself, but I mean, come on, she's like, oh, he didn't like me. I'm gonna tell him I've killed myself. That's, yes, tell him. And then when he's sad about it, I'll come out and be like, why are you sad? She's just a bitch. And Antony's also a dick because he's like bagging off with her while his wife's somewhere else, and then his wife dies and he's like, oh, let me just marry someone else and string Cleopatra on some more. Like, they're just all terrible people that make terrible decisions, and they deserve what they got. I did not like this book. But you know, like, technically it's a good book. I enjoyed Shakespeare's writing. It's just they're all terrible trash people. So yeah, about 3 stars for me. The next 2 books that I read were part of a series. They were One Punch Man Volume 9 and One Punch Man Volume 10. And yep, pretty much follow on from each other, and they were interesting. I just enjoy being in this world, makes me laugh, and yeah, parody on superheroes in a sci-fi type world, fighting crime, and it's just good, just a fun time, so yeah. And the last book that I read this month was one that I've been saying that I'm going to finish for so long, but I haven't been in the right mood for it, and I haven't sort of sat down and read it, and I finally did, and I'm so glad that I did. It's Indisputably Doris by Charles Heathcote. So Charlie's a fellow booktuber. I'll leave a link to his channel down below. This is the second book in the R. Doris series, and I just think it's so good. I don't know if it's partly because I am from an area near where this book is set. I could just see this sort of thing happening. Not to the extent that it happens to Doris, but like, old ladies be crazy. Doris goes on such a journey in this book, from a moment that she has in the beginning of the book where she gets made to do community service because she attacks another old lady at Weight Watchers, to the point where she ends this book. It was just so good. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on this book, then I was vlogging the 24-hour readathon, so you guys can go and check that out. It will be up at some point in December, so that'll be good. Yeah, so if you haven't checked out any of the Doris books, you definitely should. They're really, really funny, and this one made me like feel the feels, because like at the beginning it's really funny and really enjoyable, and you're like, oh Doris, what are you gonna get up to next? And then something happens and you're like, oh fuck, okay. And then it completely affects Doris and it changes who she is, and it's like, oh, okay. And then it just ends in like a really nice place, and I need to read the next one because I'm so glad that I finally sat down and read this one. I had a lot of fun with it, so definitely pick it up if you've not seen this one yet. Just cute, I love it. This is a really good book. I also forgot the other book that I read in the 24-hour readathon. That was not the last book that I read. I also read Binti Home by Nnedi Okorafor. I totally forgot about it because it was a Kindle book, and why do I always forget Kindle books exist? Apparently I do. Anyway, this is the sequel to Binti, and it was good. I enjoyed it. It definitely went in a different direction than I was expecting. It was definitely more of a examination of race and stereotypes that people have and prejudices, and I thought it was really interesting, but it definitely didn't go in the direction I thought it was going to. So yeah, I'm really intrigued as to where the next one's going to go. It left it on a cliffhanger, and I'm like, I really should read the next one soon, but I'm gonna probably next month, maybe leave it for ages, who knows. So those really are all the books that I read in November, and yeah, that's all I've got to say about them. Have you read any of these books? What do you think about them? Have you guys got actual thoughts on Dark Dawn that are more than just, oh my god, I love it? Because I do. Yeah, let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!